Boys, what is good? It's Herm, and I'm here today to give you my top 5 sleepers in the 2022 NBA Draft. And actually, I have a lot of honorable mentions, so it's closer to 15 than 5. So we're going to get a lot of players in here, a lot of players that I think are good value picks. And I think just to kind of preface that, it's important to start out with what I think a sleeper is. So what is a draft sleeper? A player that is expected to be picked later, but is predicted to perform better than they were expected. So in my opinion, early to mid first round picks cannot truly be sleepers. I guess if you're picked, 15 and you perform like the best guy, then to some extent you're a sleeper. But in my opinion, you must be a late first round pick, a second round pick, or even undrafted to truly be considered a sleeper. So I thought a good thing to do to compare would be to look at some examples from last year's draft. So Bones Highland was a late first round pick last year and ended up playing like one of the top 10 to 15 players in the draft class, so that was really big for him. Herb Jones is a second round pick, was really good. Ayo Dosunmu as a second round pick was really huge for the Bulls, playing a lot of point guard minutes for them. And then 3 undrafted guys, Jose Alvarado playing a lot of minutes for the Pelicans, Austin Reeves playing some good minutes for the Lakers, and Dwayne Washington out of Ohio State playing a lot of important minutes for the Pacers and playing pretty well for them also. So that's what I think a sleeper is, and I'm going to get into that, break down all these guys. But before I do, think about subscribing. It's free, it's easy. If you don't like the content, you can always unsubscribe later, that's fine. But without further ado, let's get into the sleepers. So honorable mentions. Like I said, I have a few guys here, a lot of guys that I think are good value. First off, Ron Harper Jr. out of Rutgers, the son of former NBA player Ron Harper. And he thinks he's bigger than, he's his own guy. He's not just playing in his dad's shadow. ESPN has him ranked as the 58th prospect right now, but I think he feels like a near first-round guy. Maybe not quite first-round value, but very close. Is just good at a lot of different things, whether it be rebounding, blocking shots, being a hustle defender, passing the ball, even kind of a natural scorer. Just does a lot of things well. Isn't really great in any aspect, but it's just really solid all around. He's just good at basketball. So I think he's a guy that is going to be better than where he's selected. Ismail Kamagate, the center out of France, is kind of raw right now, but is big, is pretty good at reading shots and finishing at the rim. So I think he projects as a good NBA player. It's just going to take a little bit. Jalen Williams, the center out of Arkansas, was really good for them this year. Was really, really solid. Is athletic, can kind of do a lot of pick and roll action and be quick at it and move off of pick and rolls. Peyton Watson, the small forward out of UCLA, super athletic, very, very athletic kid, and was once viewed as a top 10 pick before he arrived at UCLA. And I think he still has some of that kind of skill in him, and I think maybe he's one of those guys that's just better suited for the NBA game. We see athletes a lot kind of come into the NBA level and just be better than we expected. So athleticism is huge, and I think that's a huge help. Caleb Houston, another guy that was once projected to be picked very high out of Michigan. Very skilled offensively. The defense needs to come along a little bit, but is able to get to his own spot, create for himself. So I think he has some offensive upside. Julian Strawther out of Gonzaga. I really liked him there this year. I think he was a huge part of Gonzaga's success. And I think his ability to play off of others, whether it be cutting, pick and roll action. He doesn't need the ball in his hands all the time. He's kind of a low maintenance guy, so I think he's going to be a good value. Just feels like a guy who should get minutes. And then John Butler, over 7 feet tall, really big power forward out of FSU. We've seen it recently in years drafts where FSU guys are just really, really good. Like, they perform better than you would expect them. A lot of FSU guys ended up being thought of kind of projects, and I think he's the same. But obviously to a less extreme extent, Patrick Williams and Scotty Barnes, both out of FSU, and just performed much better than expected. John Butler obviously isn't that level of player, or he'd be ranked higher, but I just think with his size, isn't an extremely unmodern big man either, can space the floor a little bit. So I think he's an interesting guy as well. Let's get to number 5. All right, power forward Jake LaRavia out of Wake Forest. ESPN right now has him ranked as the 32nd prospect, so projected to go right outside the first round. And I think he's a first-round level player through and through. He can guard positions 1 through 5, is really versatile on that end. Isn't an elite defender at this point, isn't like the best stopper out there, but moves very well laterally, is very fluid in his movement, and isn't going to be picked on defensively either. Ranked 5th in all of college basketball in true shooting percentage, only behind centers. His ability to just get buckets efficiently is really, really huge. Great facilitator of the basketball, and he makes his teammates better. You can just see when he's out there, everyone else seems to perform better. It's almost like he puts the team on his back and just says, I'm going to make everybody here better. Even if I don't get my own shot, even if I'm not looking for myself, I can create for others, and I really like that about him, as well as being able to space the floor. 40% from 3 last season at Wake Forest. I mean, he wasn't their best player, but he is their most NBA-ready player for sure. And he just does so many things well. I love the defense. I think it can get a little better, but I'm not too concerned about that right now. The efficiency on offense is something that's really promising because a lot of these guys that we're looking at in the pre-draft process really weren't that efficient in college. So to see a guy that was really efficient at the college level, I like to see. And a passer at the forward spot is always nice to have on your team. A guy that can, bring the ball up if you need him to, but also can create in the half court as well. So I like that. Or you could put him as a spot-up guy. He's very versatile, can do a lot of different things for you, and I think he's a first-round value prospect for sure. At number 4, I have shooting guard Hugo Besson out of France. He's a guy that's really imposing because I've seen some guys rank him in like their top 15, and other people say that he shouldn't be a first-round pick at all. ESPN currently has him ranked as the 39th player in the draft class, but it was just one of the best players in the NBL this year, which I think is the second best league in the world right now. I think it's past the EuroLeague. I think the NBL is really the second highest level of competition in the world at this moment. And he was like scouted hard. Like teams were there watching him, making sure that they were guarding him at all times. And his efficiency wasn't great because of that, but it's because he's taking tough shots. Like a lot of the stars in the league today don't shoot the highest 3-point percentage, even though we know they're good 3-point shooters. Their shots are just higher difficulty. That's what Hugo Besson was facing in the NBL. He's a 3-level scorer. He can attack the rim, hit the mid-range, and shoot the 3. Very confident as a shooter and a player in general. Is just extremely confident in himself and his abilities. That does lead to him at times to have some kind of costly turnovers or some over dribbling at times because he's a little too confident in himself, but also can pass the ball pretty well. At times I think he does a little too much with it, but is a very flashy passer. We saw it at the combine, had a couple no-look passes, was just really fluid, looked really good. I thought he looked good at the combine. And a couple of years ago in France's league, when he was playing there before the NBL, he shot like 67% at the rim, which is really great for a guy of his size. Finishes well at the rim through contact, spaces the floor. Is a guy that I think could be like a top 15 guy in this draft. I'm not going to place him there in a big board, but I think his ceiling is very high, and I really like him as a prospect. At number 3, I have point guard Andrew Nembhard out of Gonzaga. Some people might say this isn't a huge sleeper just because of how well he performed at the combine, but before that he wasn't ranked all that high. So I like to factor that in and say that I think that's a big reason why he is a sleeper. 35th overall on ESPN's draft rank. Improved shooter from deep. We saw him pulling from NBA range this year at Gonzaga. And before that, he wasn't really that good of a shooter. He worked on it really, really hard in the offseason and extended his range past 3 to deep 3s. So I really like to see that from Nembhard. Has NBA range, is quick with the ball in transition on the fast break. You get him out there, he'll be speedy, he'll get movement. I really like to see that. Guys can get out and get quick buckets on the break is always something valuable. Has very good court vision, sees the floor really, really well, passes, other guys open, and just has a high basketball IQ. Was in college for a long time, 4-year guy. He might have even been a 5-year guy because he did transfer, so he was there for a while, but just really understands the game, knows what you have to do, and just is super valuable out there on the floor. I've mocked him in my last mock, which came out yesterday, to the Warriors at 28, as I think they need a backup point guard, and even there, I think that's very good value because I think he can be a really, really really solid guard off the bench, and his ability to space the floor in the Warrior system would be really solid as well. So I like Nembhard a lot. I think he should continue to rise, and the combine performance was very reminiscent of Dante DiVincenzo, who in his time in Milwaukee was very good for them. So I think Nembhard is a guy that could continue to rise throughout this pre-draft process, but if he does go late first round, I think you're getting really good value there as a guy with a for sure NBA skill set. The next two guys are a little bit deeper sleepers. These three guys were kind of fringe first rounders, early second round guys, but these next two players are either second round guaranteed or undrafted players. So these ones are a little deeper, they're a little bolder, but hopefully you guys enjoy these as well. And number 2 is small forward Johnny Juzang out of UCLA. It's kind of dropped throughout the pre-draft process, 78th ranked in ESPN's ranking. But going into the season, he was viewed as a for sure draftee because of how well he played for UCLA in the tournament, not this year, but the year before. And was just really, really solid for them as a scorer, creating his own shot, whether that be off catch and shoot, coming off of screens, or just running himself open. Is very natural scorer and knows how to create space for himself. Offensively, this guy's going to be a bucket. I've seen some comparisons to Jordan Nwora, who early on for the Bucks has shown some promise. So I think as a late second round guy, he's really valuable. Drives into floaters, like he's not going to finish hard at the rim a lot of times, but his ability to drive off of screens and then hit floaters, whether it be from 10 feet, 8 feet, whatever, can hit the floater off of the pick and roll, and he's really active off the ball. He's moving all the time, is getting himself open, is a really solid shooter, and just a natural bucket getter. He's not the best athlete in the world, he's not the fastest, but he just understands how to get open, and he just makes shots. So I think offensively, he's very valuable. Defensively, he's not going to do a whole lot for you, but if you want a spark plug offensive guy off the bench, I think Juzang is a really good spot for that. 6'7" with a 6'10" wingspan as well, pretty good size. So I think if you get him second round, you're very happy with it. Maybe a year or two in the G League as well, and I think he could really flourish and end up being a good NBA player. And then at number 1, I know all the people from the Philippines have been waiting for it. It is Kai Sotto, center out of the Philippines. This dude is just a unicorn, bro. I mean, honestly, he's compared a lot to Chet Holmgren because I think their skill sets are pretty similar. He's not even ranked in ESPN's top 100, but he did crack Sports Illustrated's recent top 60. So I think Kai Sotto is a second round guy. Recently worked out for the Cleveland Cavaliers. I hear he's interested in playing for the Spurs as well, so if he goes undrafted, maybe he goes there. But just is the epitome of a modern big man. He can space the floor, he can catch lobs, he can, bruise inside a little bit, as well as being able to protect the rim. In only 15 minutes a game, he did average about a block and a half in the NBL this year, and average almost 10 points a game on only 15 minutes. Especially towards the end of the year, he just got better and better. Was just a dominant player towards the end. It feels like he's getting more confident with every game he plays. Was once viewed as a top first round pick, but didn't play for a year. There was kind of some weird stuff going on, but he ended up going to the NBL, and I've been very impressed. I think he's looked really solid. Great size at 7'3". That's really enticing for me. I believe Taco didn't get drafted, but the Celtics did sign him. Guys that are tall like this just end up getting in the league, and usually they're not as skilled as Kai is. Kai is very, very skilled, very versatile as a player, can do a lot of different things, finishes well at the rim, as well as being a lob threat. So you get him in the pick and roll, and it's going to be hard to stop him just because of how tall he is, how big of a player he is. He needs to put on a little more on his frame. I think he's kind of skinny at this point, but because of how versatile he is offensively, I think that's okay. It reminds me a little bit offensively of Karl Anthony Towns and his ability to space the floor as well as kind of attack off the dribble and finish at the rim. 36% from 3 this year. Has been viewed as a really good facilitator and having great court vision. I think that it hasn't quite the full potential hasn't been reached there, but if he can get that court vision, I think he's going to be a really, really good NBA player, as well as he's going to get you a lot of fans in the seats because the Philippines love this dude, bro. Kai Sotto is so popular in the Philippines. I get people on my videos all the time when it's about the draft. Where's Kai Sotto? We want to see some love for Kai Sotto, and here it is. I just think he's a great player, and you're going to sell a lot of jerseys. Wherever he goes, if it's the Cavs, you're going to see a lot of Cavs Kai Sotto jerseys flying off the shelves, just just because the Philippines view this guy as the next big thing from their country and really, really great for them. And I think he's going to be that. I think he can be a good NBA player. Probably starts out as a backup center, but definitely has very high offensive upside and projects as a starting big man down the road. I think if you get this guy in the second round, it's a steal. And I don't know what has caused him to slip down so far throughout the years. As to me, I think he looks just as good as ever, and I'm really impressed with how he's been playing in the NBL. But that's going to do it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, think about liking, think about subscribing. We're trying to hit 2K by the end of the summer. I hope you did enjoy the video. The mock draft yesterday did really well, so check that out if you're into draft content. And hopefully this video does well as well. I really enjoy draft content, so the sleepers and stuff I think is really interesting. Guys that are going to be better value than where they're picked. So hopefully you did enjoy it, but that's going to be it for me today. I hope you have a good rest of your day. Peace.